Hi, welcome back, and we're going to do a follow-up to that last lesson. Um, so we were looking at AMRN, the 50-day moving average in an uptrend, the 200-day moving average in an uptrend, corrected down into this area. This is just a buy area, support area. So that's the way you can sometimes zoom out and see the what's going on with the chart a little better than sometimes taking too close of a look. Now here we'll take a look at the weekly chart of AMRN, and this is zooming out a little farther. Um, maybe I should go. Um, maybe I should go back a little farther in time here to make the chart look a little easier to read. Um, okay, when you go back even farther, this looks like even a more bullish chart than on the daily, because on the weekly you can see it made this high over here. So there's a good chance it'll get back up there again if it's heading that way, which I think it is. So this is about 1987. So this 20 bucks, this stock could be heading to 20 bucks a share. Came down here and made this base, made a thrust up, pull back, move up, pull back, bull swing, pull back, and then this just looks like a perfect uptrending stock on the weekly chart. So there's no reason to really be bearish this stock. Where if you were really zoomed in on a close daily time frame and this made this big crash down, you would just say, that stock's heading lower. So sometimes you got to take a little farther back, and it's still a judgment call, and you still want to use the other things we're using in our mentoring, like you want to use our entry signal, the CCI indicator, the MAC indicator, the trend system, whatever you found in the mentoring that you like to use for buy entry signals and stops and things. And then I showed in that last lesson where I put my stop. Here's where I put my stop. This is on the weekly chart. It's a little easier to see. That low was 930, so on the weekly. So I think I got my stop in the premium stock newsletter at 930 or 920, right in there. But to me, this stock is still in a bull trend unless it takes out this low. And the reason I'm thinking that way is because this thrust out of the base and then the test of the base and then the move up, it could correct down here again to me and it would still be bullish. But if it took out that pivot low, I wouldn't want to be in. Again, I like to have a little larger stops. I like to buy a few less shares and cut my risk down that way so I can have a little bigger stop, so I don't have to be like sitting there worried, am I going to get stopped out tomorrow if it moves down 50 cents or something, because I like this stock and I want to be in it basically. And again, you're just going to have to make a judgment on how you want to trade something like that. Okay, now here, of course, this is trading, so it can't be always easy. We're going to take a look at Starbucks. I was showing you how on the daily chart, the 200-day moving average is kind of the rock bottom support, but of course there's exceptions to every rule. And what I basically think this is, I'm extremely bullish on Starbucks too. The way this went into a high and it pulled back, if I can get this to, okay, it made the way it ran into this high. I just think that's a high that it's not a top because it made such a strong bull move into that high. The momentum was so strong. Everything looked good about Starbucks going into that high. So I think this is just a larger term correction coming in. And see how that just was just a nice, beautiful move into that high. And I think that strong momentum up there is going to propel this stock higher. I think this stock could be a 70, 80, $100 stock if this bull market keeps going. I mean, that's the way you got to look at these things. Sometimes you got to kind of look out in the future and see things that other people don't see, because most people are going to look at this and they're saying, well, it was 60, but it's crashed down here to 40. This stock's no good anymore. That's not the way you got to have a little kind of vision, and of course you're going to be wrong sometimes, but when you're right, you're going to also make some good money on it if you are. And what happened on Starbucks here is they came out with some bad earnings and it just crashed the stock. But I mean, bad earnings one time, who cares? This is a long-term growth stock. This is a big company. They are, from what I don't do a lot of fundamental analysis, but I do read and hear things like Starbucks is coming out with new innovations on how to pay for their things. They're going to be paying for their drinks over the phone. You can buy Starbucks over the phone. They're coming out with new drinks. So they're moving forward. So just bad earnings that crashed the stock. To me, that's just the weak hands getting washed out, and I think this stock is still a good stock. Okay, now here's what happened. It crashed through the 200-day moving average. So again, most people on that are going to say, okay, this stock's no good. It broke the 200-day moving average. And sometimes that would be true. It just depends on the situation and how you feel about that stock and how you feel about the general market. I'm still bullish the general market right now too. A lot of people are looking at the S&P 500. This is August 25th, 2012. A lot of people are looking at the S&P 500 as making a double top, the stock market making a major double top here. I think this is just a breakout to a new high, and I think this is a bull market, and I think it's going to keep going. Now again, I can be wrong, but you gotta kind of look at things in a different way sometimes. Okay, now here's the secret to this one. The AMRN made the correction in between the 250, and that was a larger correction on the daily time frame. Well, this has crashed through the 200, so then here's what you do. You zoom out. Again, we talked about zooming out already. And then what I do is I'll go and look at the 200-week moving average. Okay, didn't zoom out far enough, evidently. And the 50-day, 50-week, and 200-week moving average. And again, this is a kind of aggressive way to trade. Now, something's not working right here. What the heck? Maybe I'm just not going far enough back. That's probably it. I probably needed to go farther back. Okay, well. That's it. I still don't like to look at the chart too good, but maybe this one will look a little better. Yeah, that is a little better look. Okay, now when you zoom out to the weekly time frame and you see the 50-week and the 200-week moving up, this just looks like a normal correction on the weekly. It's just pulled back to the 50-week. So to me, this is just a big correction on the weekly time frame, even though the daily time frame looks like a devastating correction. Again, this is where you have to make a judgment call, but I'm still bullish Starbucks. I think this stock has just made a huge run up. The 50 and 200 week moving averages are heading higher, and this is where I would be like, especially if you're an aggressive trader and you want to try to find a low in a stock that may be like $100 a share someday and you missed it at 60 and it's down to 43 a share right now. I think that is just a beautiful buy place there, and then you're going to have to figure out where you want to put your stop. Again, it would depend on how many shares you bought, how aggressive you wanted to be. Now here's one interesting point on this is back in 2011 I was following this stock like daily because I was really interested in Starbucks, and it just kept bumping up against that 40 level all year long. I mean, this is all year long 40 was resistance, and it kind of broke through 40, and then that's when it made its bull run. Well, look, right where the correction low is coming in at 42.88. And again, it doesn't, just because 40 was resistance, 40 to 41, these things don't have to come down and hit the exact number. I mean, it's just an area. So to me, this is a strong support area here, right at 40 and a little above, and look at where this big weekly correction is coming in, right at 42. So as a classic, just looking at the chart, not looking at moving averages or anything, I would just say that's a test of this breakout, what's going on right now. And I would buy this stock in a second, and a good place to put your stop would be below this correction low. Now again, that's kind of a long ways away, but the odds of Starbucks to back down to 33 if this stock is heading higher, I think it is, the odds of this going back to 33 are pretty much non-existent. It's not going to do it. Now again, if the top's in and it heads lower, it will, but I think this is in an uptrend, so I don't think there's any way. And that's the kind of places I like to put my stops, because then I buy it here at what, it's like 48 now. I don't know if I'd go 33, but I would go back there enough, like maybe I would go below the high of the high resistance was around 40, maybe I'd go 38 or something like that. Again, that's just a judgment call you'll have to make on how much you want to risk. But I think Starbucks is just an excellent buy right here. I think this is a pullback, and these kind of pullbacks scare everybody out, and that's the beautiful time to buy them. Now here's another interesting thing, one more little thing, and then we'll wrap this one up. If we go to the daily chart, and then what you could do on Starbucks to get a buy signal is you could wait till our weekly trend system kicked in. Use our trend system on the weekly time frame. And I guess we'll go back to the weekly chart in a second and look at that. But okay, now let's put our trend system on this. 10, 10, the 10, 10 bands. And I think this will be pretty amazing for you. I mean, at least it gives us a shot. You know, again, this stuff's not always going to work, but at least it gives us a clear-cut way that we know works a lot of the time, if not most of the time. And you know, it's automatic. It's just something that we can know that works. And here's how we could have got in this big crash of Starbucks. Now, again, maybe it won't work, but this is an excellent way to have entered this stock. This is on the daily chart again. It crashed through the 200. So if we had the 200-day moving average on, it would be up here. So normally you wouldn't want to be buying a stock below the 200-day moving average. But since we went out to the weekly time frame and we saw that the 50-day moving average was support and the 50 and 200 week moving averages were moving up, and say we're extremely bullish Starbucks, which I am, and you want to try to get in this stock at a low and you want to be aggressive, you really want to get in the stock, here's a good way to do it. Our trend system, it closed this bar here on 813, closed above the 1010 bands. The MACD went above the zero line, and the parabolic put on a buy signal right at the place we would want to buy it. And so that's our trend system setup. And then we would buy on the next day's high. And so we'd be in the stock and we'd actually be at a nice profit now. And the stock looks bullish because it's moved above the bands. So what will happen when it comes into these huge crashes, if it's a good stock like I think Starbucks is, the move up can be sharp too, and I think that's what's going on here. I think Starbucks has made a sharp move off this low. It's going to come into this area and then it will find some resistance since that broke down the stock, and then it probably will pull back or something. But I basically think this is the low for the correction. Now, that doesn't mean it can't rally up here and come down and make a new low, a double bottom. That's why, again, when I buy, I would try to give them some room to work. But I think this is an excellent buy right here. Now, if you wanted to wait for a longer term buy setup, if you didn't want to be so aggressive to take the daily, then you could go to the weekly chart and you could wait for our weekly trend system to give a buy. It's not going to give a buy as soon. The daily chart leads the weekly, so it's not going to give you a buy signal as soon. But you can just see on the weekly chart, like a nice kind of double bottom correction. It's come back up, and the histogram is starting to come up, so that kind of tells you that a low could be in. The parabolic, I kind of got that hidden there. Let's see where the parabolic's going to hit on the weekly. But if you don't want to buy it off the daily, let's say you're a little more, want to be a little more safer, and you don't want to buy it off the daily, you want to wait till a weekly buy signal. And then how all this stuff kind of plays together, if you waited for a weekly buy signal, by then it would probably be above the daily 200-day moving average. So that would be more bullish evidence in your favor. And right here, the parabolic is about ready to get hit. We would be waiting for a close above the 1010 bands, which the upper 1010 band is like 51. So right now it's at 48 a share. So we'd be buying a couple bucks higher. But again, there would be advantages to that too, because that might be a little extra confirmation that the stock's headed higher. And then this is another whole different subject. We'll go into other videos, but this is where you could buy an option too into these big crashes. Like say if buying the outright stock was just a little too scary because you were just scared it was just going to keep crashing, but you also thought, you know, I bet this thing's at a low. This is where you could consider buying options. But again, that's something we'll look at in the future. So I hope you enjoy these couple of videos. I hope you learned something. I hope it's profitable. We'll be going over all this again in the future. If you have any questions, send me an email, and I greatly appreciate you watching my videos. Thanks. Jim.